Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan here for another Inside the Birds, and we've got a lot to talk about. We've got more front office developments to speak of. We've got rookie minicamp to speak of, maybe a little defensive scheme philosophy that we'll get into in this podcast, a whole gamut of things. First of all, we just got to say this right now. The Intel with Greg Cosell, the last one that we did, was so watched, so popular. We just want to thank everybody who saw it and checked it out. It was easily our most watched video or most listened to podcast that we've ever done since we started this thing in 2018. So we're really happy that everybody seemed to get a kick out of Adam, and it should be an indication that if you haven't heard it yet, you should get to it right now, because again, he went over AJ Brown, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Cam Jurgens, and even some of the rookie free agents we're going to talk about in a little bit. So he really went through quite everybody and gave you his best on it.
Yeah, no doubt. We know part of it. The Georgia fans chimed in. I don't know how they found us. I guess maybe some of the hashtags, but they certainly had some interesting things to say. They're not happy with some of the stuff Greg said. He just goes by the tape, folks. He has nothing against the player. In fact, on that particular show, he was more positive about Jordan Davis than he was the last time we talked to Greg about Jordan Davis. So, and we talked about AJ Brown, and that quote you used. So we got a ton of play on the newsletter. I guess you put some of the clips in the newsletter from on AJ Brown and maybe some other players, whatever. The stuff he had on AJ Brown was so strong, people just went out of their mind with it. So yeah, we got over 30,000 views and listens. It's by far the biggest show we've ever done, and nothing even comes close to it. Mm-hmm. And they love Greg. There's no doubt. He will be back with us soon. I know people were starting, are they going to be back? What's going on? We're going to be back. We promise.
We'll get him back.
Yeah,
definitely. So, make sure you check that out if you haven't yet. And yes, the quote he hit AJ Brown fits the Eagles like a freaking glove.
I love that.
The mini quote was the big quote. And of course, AJ Brown was, he's already in uniform and was sort of doing his thing with the Eagles over the weekend at their camp. So we'll get into that a little bit. You mentioned the newsletter, but before we even get to that, we've been kind of teasing a big interview coming up, and we've got one that will drop pretty soon this week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll figure that out. But we're doing an ITB TV with former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo, and most of you who know about Flip know that even before he came to the Eagles to be a part of that 2017 run that he was involved with, he would have been to a lot of different places, and he's a good quarterbacks coach, good offensive mind, has a lot of experience, and we're big on education in this podcast. So, of course, we're going to ask him about 2017. We'll get into Carson Wentz. We'll get into Nick Foles. We'll get into the Super Bowl run and all of it. But I can't wait to ask him just in general about, Jalen Hurts and other quarterbacks who he's seen or gotten to know along the way, and how he grades quarterbacks, what his expectations are. And like I said, we'll get into how it is that he wound up being the guy who got the most so far out of Carson Wentz, but certainly that's an area we're going to delve into as well.
Yeah, no doubt. When I've talked to John over the years, running into him wherever he was, Cleveland, Raiders, Eagles, Vikings, Jags, and so forth.
Jets.
He just always loves to talk ball, and he's known arguably as the best quarterbacks coach in the league, best quarterback developer. Mm-hmm. I remember meeting him, I don't know, years ago, and it wasn't when he was with Jamarcus Russell, but he told me the Jamarcus Russell story is remarkable. We'll give you a little bit of hint, because I'm definitely I want to get into it with him. He got Jamarcus Russell, when he was drafted, and if you remember, Russell didn't sign till maybe October. John would probably remember better, November or October of that year that he was drafted. And John had to get him ready and functional. It's amazing what these coaches have to do.
Yeah.
Was Jamarcus Russell the first pick overall? Does that sound right?
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I've talked to a lot of quarterback coaches over the years, but his story is very unique. And he was with Mark Sanchez with the Jets. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he was with that staff under Rex Ryan. So he's got some great stories to tell. But as you said, the big reason is to learn. We're on the search of learning, and it starts with him in the quarterback position and what we can learn from him, and y'all can learn. So we appreciate that. We'll get with him. This could be a long one because he's got some incredible stories. And his dad, Dr. Gene, was a longtime coach, and then became the head athletic director for Villanova and Boston College. And John went to Radnor High.
Oh, that's right. Local guy. Forgot about that.
Yep.
So wait, Flip was with the Bears the last few years, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So not only was he coaching Nick Foles there and Justin Fields, but I believe I'm sure at some point since they've been looking at quarterbacks that he may have, done a lot of scouting on Jalen Hurts. So he'd probably be pretty good to ask about Jalen Hurts in some form or fashion. He's probably seen his college tape and has some interesting observations on him. I would think.
Sure. Yeah. No doubt. In fact, I'm fairly certain the Bears interviewed him pre-draft, maybe at the combine or something.
Okay.
So we'll see if he remembers at least the pre-draft tape, because he wouldn't have watched any pro tape most likely because he was coaching last season, but the last 2 seasons. So the fact of the matter is he's an amazing guy. If you look at his career, also coached at San Jose State as an offensive coordinator. And something we want to do is we want to have a coaching series where we get guys who coach. We haven't really done that before. So Flip will be the first one, and we'll try to get some guys who used to be in the league that I don't know if John's wants to go back or not. I assume he does. Most coaches want to go back, but we definitely want to go back. We want to get with some coaches over the next series of months, guys who have retired, maybe who maybe have an Eagles connection, or the bottom line is guys who are known as some of the best at their job. So look forward to doing that.
All right, great. Last thing I want to mention before we get started, of course, you already brought it up, our newsletter. Yeah. So please subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. And we are trying to give you, if you are a subscriber to our newsletter, something that maybe you don't get in other areas of InsideTheBirds.com. We're already trying to use the newsletter to tie together what we do from a podcast, YouTube channel, website, and anything else that we do, bringing it all into one in the newsletter. But we've done some, like before the draft, we had some scouts intel on certain prospects that we saved just for the newsletter. We've been answering Ask ITB questions just on the newsletter, and just trying to make it as interactive as possible and give our subscribers something that you don't get everywhere else on ITB. So it's very easy. You can go to InsideTheBirds.com. The screen will pop up. It'll say, hey, give us your email address. So plug it in, sign up, get the newsletter. It's getting rave reviews. People who have signed up have communicated to us that they really like it. So again, can't emphasize this enough. It's free. So please get yourself the newsletter and enjoy the extra perks for Inside the Birds. All right. So we have a lot to talk about this podcast. We're going to get into the front office shakeup and the restructuring that's been going on, because that's a big deal. First, I want to remind everybody that we've got new partners, Devacor. Over the last year, we've seen what's known as the Great Resignation. It's made it clear that there's no better time to change careers than right now, the good old present. Devacor is a Philadelphia area family-owned career development company that helps guide hardworking professionals on the path to new and fulfilling careers. Unlike those big companies in the career development space that offer the same cookie-cutter career advice and services, Devacor's certified career development team is hands-on, passionate, knowledgeable, and takes pride working closely with their clients to ensure that their experience is personalized and tailored to their needs. So whether you need a new resume, a cover letter, a CV, or you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile, or just work with a career coach, Devacor has you covered in all of those spaces. Just go to devacor.com/birds to schedule a free 15-minute career coaching consultation. And you also get an exclusive 15% discount on your next order. That's devacor.com/birds. All right. So let's get into this front office stuff, because it started last week. We had a lot of intel on that, and it continued this past week. Adam, first you start with just who's gone, right? And we'll recap for quickly. Why don't you go take us through who's gone?
Okay. Since the season ended, it's the best way to do it is take an overview.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, some you're not sure. Some people didn't even know if these guys left. So we'll go over it. So everybody knows Ian Cunningham left. He was one of their directors of player personnel. Most teams don't have co-personnel. Sometimes they call them co-personnel directors.
Mm-hmm.
So the Eagles call them they're both directors of player personnel. Ian Cunningham left to be the Bears general assistant GM. He worked mostly on the college side with some pro work. Brandon Brown was the other director of player personnel. He worked mostly on the college side, on the pro side, with a little bit of college work. He became the Giants assistant GM. Catherine Rach, which we noted on the last show, who was the Eagles VP of football operations. She's leaving to become the Browns assistant GM. All these teams. So Catherine was mostly operations, a little bit of scouting, but mostly operations. So she, from what I'm told by a source, that she's going to have a little bit better opportunity to do some more scouting. But remember, she worked as was she an assistant GM in CFL? The Alouettes?
She was an assistant GM, I believe, of the Argonauts. And
Argos,
I think she was director of football administration for the Alouettes.
Okay. But she'll get a little bit better opportunity to do scouting, but really well liked by the Eagles. Like, this is a tough one because what we hear is that just they kind of knew that they I don't know how she got there. I don't know who knew, I don't know if Howie Roseman knew her, didn't know, whatever. This is a pretty good find for her to replace Andrew Berry. Then, ironically, now she's working for Andrew in Cleveland. Isn't it funny how things work out? As the number 2 in their personnel department now with the Browns. So good for her. Todd Donahoe is exiting, who was their senior football advisor. Everybody knows pretty much that Howie Roseman brought him in many years ago, and he was a mentor to so many people, such wisdom, helped build those teams with the 70s. Didn't have the great run with the Bills as their GM, but certainly had a great run with the Steelers, and heck of a guy, great wisdom. And he leaves. Now, talking to someone who knows him from another team, has known him forever, he said he's not totally, like some people speculating he's going to retire. He may, but it's not definite, I was told, just to put that out there. We'll see what he does. Met Tom a couple years ago, talked to him a couple times, don't really know him, but I've always enjoyed talking to him about football, the times that I was able to talk to him. Good dude, good man, had an incredible career. We know about Casey Waddle, as we reported last week, director of scouting operations. He's leaving. They're going to pay his contract. Now, you and I have talked to so many people. We'd be shocked if he doesn't have a job this season. In fact, I'd be shocked if he doesn't have a job in the next 6 weeks. So, but the reason why they're moving on from him is because they have someone they want to promote. We don't know who that is exactly yet, but we've heard they want to promote someone. Evan Pritt, who's a scouting assistant, was let go. He wasn't there for very long, a couple of years. TJ McCrate, who was brought in with the Ravens guys as a player personnel executive, which is generally it's a general title where what they do is you look for his experience on whatever side you want him to be on, pro and college, maybe it's both, but he's not being brought back. And Sean Heinlein was let go, who's a Southwest scout, has been a scout forever, Bills and then the Eagles to finish it off there. He should be able to get another job. He's pretty good at his job, but maybe they have someone potentially in-house they want to put in there. We shall see. And then possible promotions. Geoff, we know that what's funny, we said possible the last show. Now we're going to call them probable, which means it should happen. Mm-hmm. We're told by multiple sources, Alan Walking, the senior director of college scouting, should get promoted. We don't know what the title will be and what his responsibility will be, but you got a promotion a couple of years ago to senior director of college scouting. Dave Caldwell, who's a personnel executive. Everyone knows he came from Jacksonville as their GM. Now, the question is, what would you promote him to? He obviously has massive experience in pro and college side. And we heard Ryan Myers, the West Coast area scout, is getting a promotion. We don't know too. He does have pro, Geoff. I forgot about this. He has some pro scouting experience early in his career. So who knows what that will be, whether he will be out of college and do both or whatever. But he's getting promotion from what we heard. He's expected to, at least. Phil Baez, the Southeast area scout, is expected to get some sort of promotion. And then Andy Waddle, we hear the questions on him. We know that, he's there. We know his brother's gone. Now, the question we were told flat out he's not getting fired. Now, the question is, from Andy's standpoint, does he want to still stay there? We haven't heard that he wants to leave, but we'll see. I mean, there's a saying in the National Football League, you don't try to leave a job until you have another job lined up. So he's their VP of player personnel. They pay him very well respected by the organization. They want him to stay. But people are asking, well, his brother left. Is he not happy? I can't answer that. I have no idea. So it's just all speculation. But the fact of the matter is, very well respected. They like him. And unless he wants to leave, which we haven't heard, we'd expect him to be there.
Yeah, no, you know what? I like the way you put it last podcast, Adam, that you said, "Hey, look, if it was me and somebody fired my little brother, I probably wouldn't be thrilled about it." So I'm sure Andy's not like tickled pink that Casey Weidel is no longer a part of the organization. But as you said, he's here. There's a lot of moving parts here. I mean, Howie already had lost three really important people in his front office. That's Ian Cunningham, Brandon Brown, Catherine Rach, right? Before Casey Weidel, Tom Donahoe, Evan Pritt, TJ McCray, Sean Heinlein. So I'm not great at math, but I think that's eight people. One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, eight people that are definitely gone. And who knows? This is just a weekend. So we'll see. And like you said, Anthony Wild staying for now, but we'll see what happens with him or anybody else in the front office as we go forward. I know people want us to do this. I'm not going to do it because it doesn't make sense to. I'm not going to put a value judgment, good thing, bad thing,
No.
dysfunction, not dysfunction. I'm not doing this until this thing is done and I see what the results are at the end. Okay. What I will say is it's a strange time for the organization to kind of undergo this because they're generally seen as coming out of that 2 year, malaise of the 2019 and 2020 draft, getting their stuff together. They had what looks like a good draft 2 years ago with Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson, and then what seems like a pretty good draft. We'll never know until we see these guys play. But a lot of people felt like they got good value. And then they also traded for AJ Brown, who's a no doubt about it, Pro Bowl talent. So for all of this kind of rectifying of the past wrongs to come together, and then all of a sudden you have like a different front office. Well, now in 2 or 3 years, if things are going south, you might look back on this and say, well, what happened? Why did all of a sudden you feel like you had to completely change things up? But what I will say is just based on some of the homework that we've done and some of the people that we've spoken to that either are close to the organization or know the organization's thinking, what I'm commonly hearing is that you are seeing a intentional change to get younger. You can see some of the guys who are not with the organization anymore have been scouts for quite a while. TJ McCray's been a while. I mean, we know that Donahoe is 75 years old. Sean Heinlein has been a scout for a long time, right? So we'll say they're getting younger. We know diversity is important to this staff. In fact, some of the people that they're interviewing that we haven't gotten to yet, but we did talk about on the last podcast, we'll bring diversity to the staff if they're hired. We know it's important to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, right? And I'd say this, a common theme I'm hearing is their view of the scouting and personnel process is evolving. Someone said to me, it's a more forward-thinking approach to scouting and personnel. Now, I would love to do a little more homework to find out what that exactly means. When you say forward-thinking, I don't know. So we will find that out. I think that's an interesting term. I know Howie in general and Jeffrey in general have always spoken about wanting to have a really clean, fluid process where there's great communication and that everybody's on the same page. And as we go along in the years, there are, different teams do different things, from using computers, technology. We've talked about analytics, and we've talked about 1,000 different things that have changed within scouting. So I imagine, the Eagles are sort of in that boat too, where they're trying to get rid of anything that they find to be old hat or extraneous. And they're just trying to keep up with the Joneses or be ahead of the curve with what they do. They are like that with sports science. They're like that with their medical staff, right? So it's not surprising for me to hear that that's part of now what they're looking for from a scouting and a personnel department. I just want to get more of an understanding of what being forward thinking means. But like I said, we know they're undergoing major change, and we'll see what kind of impact that has on the front office and on the franchise.
They're looking to be cutting edge, so they brought Ted Rath in from the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about him on, I think maybe the last show. He came from the Rams staff. They have the best injury situation in the league. They have the least amount of players listed on the injury report every week, least amount of players going IR. It's just whatever they do, the Eagles bought into it. They wanted that guy and they got him, and it worked. It worked so far. He's done a good job, and along with the other people are evaluating their injury situation. So yeah, they try to be cutting edge and say this is what makes Jeffrey Lurie one of the better owners in the league. He's willing to spend the money, man. He doesn't care. I mean, whatever it takes to win. In fact, someone from another team who knows a lot of the guys who work for the Eagles mentioned this to me. He goes, he's never met Jeffrey Lurie. He goes, he's amazing what they're willing to do, whatever money it takes, whatever you 25 million a year for AJ Brown, whatever it takes, he's willing to do it. And that puts you in the upper half of owners, just from a resources standpoint. And then obviously it's, okay, do you have great facilities? Do this, do that, and the other? These guys are really good because you can't have the winning they've had since '94 and them changing it around without an owner's willing to do whatever it takes. And this is why they guys generally over the years we've talked to people who work for the Eagles. They generally like working for Jeffrey and Howie. Is it perfect? No. But guys more often than not, they like working there because they're treated well, they're paid very well. And also another thing that's important, they're in the player pension. They're in the NFL's pension. Not every team is in the pension.
That's right. That is the one thing that not the one thing, but that is one thing that when I've done my homework around the league, as far as teams that are well regarded because of how they pay their employees, I've been surprised to learn that there are some really cheap teams out there. I mean, some are obvious. You hear them all the time. Like a team that doesn't have a scouting staff, from the AFC that we hear about all the time.
But they do, but it's not what it should be.
I know. It's
not robust.
Exactly. Yeah. But the Eagles are the opposite of that. They pay very well. In fact, I know this for a fact. Some people who have not always loved working there because maybe they've had some headbutts in the past, kept their job because they were paid well. It's tough to leave when you got that steady paycheck in. So that is fair to say. Though I'll close it off with this. One of my criticisms of the franchise in the past has been that I always feel like they have sort of they don't have a concrete identity. It seems like every 3 or 4 years they change what it is that makes them, right? Like the Ravens aren't like that. They have this saying, play like a Raven, that's been up there for 30 years, and their scouting department has been, I shouldn't say 30 years. I know they expanded not too long ago in 2000, but my point is Ravens, Steelers, some other teams kind of, no matter what changes around them, they always have that concrete principle of who they are and what they do. And I've always said the Eagles, man, it seems like every 3 or 4 years they're trying to tell you something different, about what they're doing, other than investing in the trenches, what they've always done well since Andy Reid. Their overall team identity. So again, that's why when I heard this kind of forward thinking stuff, I'm like, oh man, I hope this is not like a reinventing of the wheel or just a new identity that they're bringing on. But again, I'm not going to judge it until I see what the finality is and how that impacts the team. It's easy to sit here and say, this is good. It's easy to sit here and say, this is worrisome or bad. I don't know. I think that's the safest thing to say.
Yeah. I mean, if they're changing anything and how they scout or anything, we haven't heard that, but we'll find out one way or the other.
Correct.
But yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. But from what we've heard, the process, they feel really good about the process. They've identified, they're going to have, so we might as well let's get to the second part of the scouting to it, and then we'll get the UDFA class to close the show out. But so I know we were reported last show, Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern, that Brandon Hunt, the Steelers pro scouting coordinator, is going to interview for a high-ranking personnel job, pretty high up. I mean, higher than he has. It's funny, he has that pro scouting coordinator job. And once again, it's another title that does not explain what the guy really does.
No. I mean, Brandon Hunt has been in the Steelers organization for quite a while. He is up for their GM vacancy. Now, they're casting a wide net. They're interviewing a lot of people. So he's one of many, but he's been with the team. We know they like to promote from within. He's done college, he's done pro, he leads meetings, and it's my understanding, he has a very prominent position in the scouting department. I don't think that there's a lot of people in that department that it's quote unquote rank higher than him. There's Kevin Colbert, there's Omar Khan, and he may literally be number 3 there in the scouting department, as I understand it, or at least tied for 3 with someone else. So it's natural that the Eagles will be looking at him for a high-ranking position, and he's been on their radar before. Now, I had trouble figuring this out. I know that he was on their radar either when Chip Kelly had the power that year, and he was looking to interview the quote-unquote GM candidates. He wound up settling on Ed Manowitz, who was right there under his own nose with the Eagles. Or was it in 2016 when Howie got his power restored and Jeffrey said, you have to hire someone to lead your personnel
Oh,
staff? Now he wound up hiring Joe Douglas. I think
right.
Brandon Hunt might have interviewed then.
Okay.
But either way, the point is he's been on the Eagles' radar for over 5 years now. And as we understand it, he's not just coming in for them to do a little, like, who are you? Let's get to know you. They really like this guy.
They know him. We've heard he's a top candidate. Is he the top candidate? No, but he's to be a whatever. Again, with these titles, when the Eagles are, from what we understand, they're definitely going to have. At least their plan is to have at least two personnel directors, like Cunningham and Brandon Brown had. Now, with Brandon, because again, Brandon Hunt's pro scouting coordinator is not a very high ranking title, but as you said, he's got a lot more responsibility than that title.
Yeah.
So here, would he be assistant GM? Would he be a player, a VP of player personnel? I have no idea. I don't know that, but I do know this. He's a guy they've targeted. They in their restructuring here. He's. I mean, again, they're going to interview some other guys. So we know as we put on our last show, they want to talk to Rand Carthon, who's director of player personnel for the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
Morocco Brown, we've heard they want to talk to him, who's a Colts college scouting director, who's had pro work. He's been around. Both guys are really high respected, and they want to talk to other guys. But Hunt's right up there as the top guy they want to get, and we'll see. He's very well respected. He's probably going to be GM someday. Everyone tells us he's a stud, and we'll see if this would be a huge. If they do get him now, if he doesn't get the Steelers GM job and they get him, that's a major score if they get this guy.
Yeah, definitely well regarded. He was supposed to interview this past weekend with the Eagles. I'm pretty sure he did. I know the weather was really crazy, especially in the Northeast, and it was windy and it was rainy and gusty. So I don't know if any travel plans got canceled. That's why, they did invent these wonderful computers where we can have these conversations and don't have to be in the same place. But I'll make sure by Thursday morning's pod, I'll get you or I will get enough information to figure out, how the interview went, who went, and what went on there.
It's unbelievable. You obviously referring to Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
Tom Dimitroff, the former Falcons GM, interviewed on Skype in 2007 or 8, whenever he became the Falcons GM. Isn't that incredible?
That's amazing.
Back then, I know. Skype, I think it was called Skype. I use Skype actually to set up our shot for the like before we sign on to tape the show. I use Skype to set up my shot to make sure it's even.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just funny, like you're talking about 15 years ago. Skype is still around.
I know. Is pretty amazing. And then now there are streaming services and all sorts of things you could use.
Sure.
So we'll see. So it's sort of interesting. You have the kind of the Steelers GM search coinciding with the Eagles talking to Brandon Hunt and themselves looking for a high ranking executive. It's almost like, does it become a race? Does it become a leverage battle of who, but like you said, the Eagles, as we reported last podcast, they've got some other guys on their radar as well, Rand Carthon and Morocco Brown. So we'll see. So I guess we don't know really how long this thing might take or if it gets done really quickly. Either way, if it's done before Thursday, you and I will just do an emergency ITV. But
I would say this. I don't think they're going to get all this, whatever promotions, any scouts they have to, if they're going to hire some people from other teams. I don't think it's going to get done this week.
Right.
I think it get done within 2 weeks because from what we heard, they have a pretty good idea, a vision of what it's going to look like. And they have a very lengthy list of people to promote and potentially hire and interview from other teams and so forth. Now, here's another thing is that by rules, you can block some of these guys from interviewing. Now, as we noted earlier, Ryan Myers, in fact, I'm fairly certain another team had interest in him. The Eagles have a history of promoting guys and gals to jobs when they know other teams are after them. They're really good at, I don't know how they know this, other than a team putting a slip in. They just kind of like, they try to head these things off. And they're pretty, like, Rosen's pretty loyal to these guys. He's, look, I understand there are a couple of guys who are not going to be brought back, and it's disappointing, but they have a history of taking care of their people, which not every team does that. And, you talked about it earlier, they pay these guys pretty well. And Myers was left over from the Chip Kelly, Tom Gamble staff. And to Roseman's credit, he didn't fire him. He actually kept him. He's very well liked and respected.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what titles these guys get. And then the other one.
Don't. I want to just stop real quick before we get to the other guy. Because it's a good time to remind everybody, and we need everybody's attention. The mud is going to fly again on Trenton Avenue. One of Philadelphia's largest and most unique spring festivals is back on Saturday, May 14th in Fishtown and East Kensington from noon till 6 p.m. I almost did, but I didn't this time, Adam. Philadelphia Federal Credit Union Kensington Derby and Arts Festival makes a grand return with an all-day event that's expected to draw thousands of people to the great outdoors and space out along a massive 3-mile route spanning Trenton Ave from Norris to Frankfurt. All along the way, families, foodies, artists, and inventors, I like the inventors, will experience the city's wackiest celebration of local flavor. Now, just think of the city's wackiest celebration of local flavor. Have these people seen the Mummers Parade? Apparently this is wackier. All right. The event is part arts and food festival with more than 100 vendors selling everything from food to handmade goods, and part parade of human-powered vehicles that wind along a 3-mile urban obstacle course. Now in its 14th year, the Kensington Derby and Arts Festival returns after a 2-year break. The event is widely known as one of the largest spring festivals in the tri-state region, and it's got a reputation as being one of the city's most memorable and unique events that goes beyond just food, drink, and vendors. The event brings vendors, performers, musicians, food trucks, local businesses, and neighbors together in a way that's as unique as the 2 prominent and fast-growing neighborhoods it takes place in. We look forward to seeing you and your family there. All right. So you were about to mention another front office move. So go ahead.
Yeah. So after we taped, I'm going to say either Thursday night or Friday morning, we had heard that they were looking to hire Charles Walls as a director of player personnel as one of them. As we know, they kind of split the responsibilities. He's a national scout for the Browns. ESPN reported, I think Sunday, that he's expected to get hired. That's what we were told. Same thing. However, Brown source told us over the weekend that it should happen, but the Browns had interest in keeping him. But my point was, how in the world are they going to put him higher than director of player personnel?
Right.
I just don't see how he's not getting assistant GM title because Catherine Rach is getting it. So I would expect this to happen.
So this is a trade. The Eagles are trading Catherine.
Yeah, I know, it's funny
because for Charles Walls.
I thought the same thing. It's so funny you say that. I was like, wait a minute. So Catherine gets the VP, she gets the assistant GM job. So the Eagles took Charles Walls as a trade.
Are there cash considerations or a player to be named later?
Are there still? Is it just baseball cash considerations or is it NBA? I don't remember.
I don't know. Maybe there's a conditional 6th round pick.
Right, exactly. Right.
Where if Catherine becomes the GM of a different team in 2 years, the Eagles will get a higher pick.
But so he'll get one of the director of player personnel titles. We That's what we're told. But we were also told that it should be the similar setup as they had before, where they might have 2 of them. We'll see. Again, they're going to revamp this scouting staff. So who the heck knows? The new titles they've never used before.
Right.
Assistant to the traveling secretary. I don't know.
Well, we also know that they brought in Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl.
Oh yeah.
For an interview there.
Yeah.
And he obviously, a lot of people know him for all the college experience that you would think that they would tap into if he were to be hired from running the Senior Bowl for a few years now. But he's also someone who's worked for NFL teams and has had pro scouting in his background. So between, Charles Walls and whatever happens with Jim Nagy, if he's hired or not, or whether it's Brandon Hunt or somebody else, Rand Carthon, Morocco Brown, they've got guys. You mentioned Ryan Myers. They're getting guys who have both pro and college experience. And Adam, I'll tell you, someone put it to me this way, as far as what Howie's trying to do right now. He's trying to fill up a staff with good people who he values, who he respects, who have good reputations around the league. And he's going to figure out what suits them best later. So I don't know if he's definitely hiring this guy, next guy, maybe this woman as this title. More so we're hiring, and then we're going to figure out what they are once we get them in here. I mean, you obviously have to have a title to present to somebody. So I'm sure that they're being told you're going to be in charge of this, or you're in charge of that, or you're going to help out this. But Right now, from based on my understanding, he's just trying to replenish a scouting staff that's lost 7 or 8 people and just getting as many good people as possible.
Right. He knows what roles he wants them for, but I think it's more the titles. They'll figure it out. Yeah,
Right.
that's kind of what I had heard. It's funny. This is not the first time I've heard this. This happens quite a bit where teams target certain people. They go, hey, listen, this is what we want you to do. You're going to work on this side. We'll figure out what your title is. But when you get the VP title, that's more money, just so you know. So I'm sure, we'll see. Like Andy Weil, when he got the VP title, that gives you more money. So we'll see. But Charles Walls is who worked for the Browns as national scout, expected to be hired by the Eagles, and then that would be pretty much it. But again, there'll be, when we drop the Thursday show, there will be more names. Trust me, we've got 2 or 3 we also heard of, but we can't use yet till we get them confirmed. Like Morocco Brown one, we had heard, but we didn't put it. Did we put it on the last show? I don't think we did, or did we? I don't think we did.
I think we did. Maybe not. I can't remember.
Parthon we did, I know for sure, but I remember saying we might hold off on the Brown one because I wasn't totally sure if that was correct, and then we heard from multiple people it's definitely correct.
Okay.
So and then we heard they want we call these probable promotions of Walken, Caldwell, Ryan Myers, Phil Byatt, maybe a couple other people, and we'll see what it looks like. As you said, this is going to shake out over a 2-week period, if not longer. And the other thing is, before we move on to the UDFA classes, that their plan is, unless they change their mind, to announce them all at the same time, because there's so many moves. They've done this before when they've revamped, because they don't like dropping this here, dropping that there. They like to get it all done at one time.
Right. So, that's another thing. You're right. We won't find out until this could be quite a while as far as being official. Sure. Until they make that release. So we will see what happens then. All right. So I think that's going to pretty much close the book for now on the situation with the front office. We can talk about some of the UDFAs that the Eagles signed. There was the rookie camp over the weekend. So the modified schedule thing is weird, because as far as I understand it, they're going off the same schedule they went last year. If people remember, they got like everything out early. Yeah. And then they had about 8 weeks in between the end of their last camp and the beginning of training camp. So it sounds like that's the same, because we've seen clip. We know that veterans met the media. We know AJ Brown was out there with his teammates. So, but obviously they brought in a bunch of 42 people to just rookie camp itself. So that means a lot of tryouts.
Right. So as you said, like last year, the Eagles were the first team to be done their offseason program. So they gave them, as you said, extra weeks. So based on what you're saying, it sounds like, because they're OTAs, but the schedule that the NFL sent does not match up with the way that the Eagles are doing it. So they're moving everything up. And what you're going to have now is you had some the stuff that they're doing. There's no, I guess it's called whatever they call it, phase 1. You're not, in terms of, or whatever it is, phase 1 or phase 2. There's not. It's routes on air. They're in jerseys, no pads. You're just running routes. You're not doing anything strenuous. But the one thing that you can get, I asked someone, I said, in scouting, I said, what do you get out of this thing? You want to see the retention from the drafted players after they get their playbook. They know they're swimming. That this is what they expect. They want to see the retention about what they can do. There's no real competition for jobs here. Everybody knows that. That will come in the mandatory camp and then training camp. But you want to see athletic movement. You want to see that they can retain, and just you want to watch the communication between everybody. You don't want to go too hard on this thing, but this is just the start of getting them on the field. And then I remember a guy tell me one time, one guy did not. This wasn't with the Eagles; it was another team. Actually, I remember Bill Polian saying the same thing when I asked him. Was there ever a time in an OTA where a guy comes in, he does not look like the guy that you thought you were getting, like he looks great on tape. And then when you get him in there, you're like, oh my God, the guy can't run, something like that.
Right.
I do remember an example of that. The guy gets in the OTAs and maybe he looks slower or sluggish. And the team would wind up regretting it. And then they were right with that, what they saw. They wound up cutting the guy after a year or so.
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure out why he didn't look, but that is so rare that the guy doesn't look like he does on tape when you get him.
Right. So some of the guys who they brought to camp, either as a UDFA or a tryout, that are interesting. One of the guys is this wide receiver, Britton Covey. I think it's Covey or Covey from Utah, I believe. Adam, he's got a
Yeah.
lot of twitch. He's got a lot of, he's a return specialist, and it's not surprising because we've been reporting for a while, how they've been looking for one. They went after Richie James from the 49ers in free agency. He signed with the Giants. They had some interest. I think you had mentioned an Andre Roberts, who wound up signing with who did he sign
Panthers.
with? Panthers, right?
Yep.
So this is a kid now who probably has an opportunity to come and make the club as a return specialist, which they've done before. They've, who's the guy? Remember Jorick Calvin?
Oh, what a name.
Yeah,
Yes.
he made the team literally he was a safety, but the only thing he did was return punts for the team.
You know how many times I called him Calvin Jorick? You've no, because I couldn't get it, just couldn't function in my mind. Like Boston Scott,
Scott
Jorick Calvin. But yeah, it wasn't Calvin Jorick. Yeah, it was Jorick Calvin. What year was that, by the way?
2008, 2009,
Sounds
maybe.
Right. It definitely was before 2010. What a name. Yeah.
I think it was 2008 actually, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the point is, if you're good enough at that, you can make the team. You can make the 53 as a return specialist. So we'll have to keep our eyes on him. Carson Strong was out there, as we both mentioned. This is all about the medicals and his ability to, as I like to joke, hopefully he'll be around longer as a UDFA signing than Jamie Newman was, which was about a week last year. But we'll see.
What a name. Jamie Newman, who in fact, he's now in the CFL. The hype with that guy was so absurd, and he was gone. And we tried not to bash him. We had pretty good sourcing on it last year, folks, if you're new to our show. And I was trying to be as delicate as I had. I heard he was terrible. So I was like, he didn't look very good. I don't want to bash. I don't like bashing players, but it's our job to be honest. And he was really bad. He struggled.
Yep.
And so much so he never caught on with another team. Now he's with the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Yeah. And when we say never caught on with another team, I'm pretty sure he was not in anybody else's camp, even as an extra arm after the Eagles cut him.
Could it be that bad?
Apparently he could.
Well, here's the thing with him. As I recall, I'm certain of this because I remember checking into it. No other team offered him a contract to come into as a UDFA, which he's a quarterback. How does this happen? Was he that bad in college? Like, I know he didn't play in 2020. He opted out. He never played for Georgia. He was going to go there, but he opted out.
Right.
But I mean, wow. It's just
hard to believe. Yeah. So anyway, back to Carson Strong. Yeah. Obviously, the it's all about the knees, but I'm sure he'll be given as much opportunity to see if he can, continue to, improve and make the 53 when that time comes. Another name that stood out was the defensive tackle from Idaho, 350-pound guy, Noah Ellis. And so there's two things that's really interesting. One is that he is the second relative of Luther Ellis to be on the team. Is Luther Ellis's son, Christian Ellis, is a linebacker who was on the Eagles practice squad last year. I think he got called up once or twice.
He's back.
Yeah, he's still with the team. Yeah. And now I believe Noah Ellis is his adopted son, but either way, he's got two of his sons on the Eagles. That's cool. For a guy who has no ties to the Eagles, that's even more weird.
That's a great point, right? I think Luther might be a chaplain, something like that. He
not for the Eagles though.
No. But in life, I think he might be something like that. But Luther was the first round pick of the Lions. And then, his son he's a good run stopper, Noah Ellis. Yeah, so we'll see how he does.
Right.
So on offense, here you go. Here's the list. Carson Strong, who you mentioned. We'll over a series of weeks, we'll get a report. We're not going to do reporting on this every show. We're gonna wait till they've got several practices, and then we'll sum it up and go, here's where he's at to start June. We'll give you that, unless something happens where you go, it's either really bad or really good, where we feel like we need to say something. Kenny Brooks, who's not really fast, is a running back out of Oklahoma. They do have an opening for a running back, at least a push in training camp. You mentioned Covey. They need a returner. William Dunkel, a guard from San Diego State. Josh Sills, a guard from Oklahoma State. And then Jared Williams is a guard tackle. The Eagles love putting these guys on the practice squad. They clear waivers to go to the practice squad. And we'll see what happens. You mentioned defense. Allison and the Ali Fayyad guy, who's an outside linebacker. He would be a stand-up outside linebacker in a 34. He's got some pass rush skills. He's not fast, but he put up good numbers in college out of Western Michigan. The big one, obviously, is Mario Goodrich. They're paying him a lot of money, 207 $200,000 fully guaranteed. He's got offset language, I'm told, on the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So if they cut him, he can't make more than $207,000 if they cut him. But man, he's got a wonderful opportunity. The reason why he can get drafted is that he was hurt during, I think, the Senior Bowl maybe, and just offseason. In the offseason, he didn't run well either in testing. That knocked him out of the draft. Josh Jobs got a real chance. They had some good intel on him. The guy's name is Panunzio. The guy Joe Panunzio works for the Eagles. He knows that program better than anyone. So obviously he would have good intel. I think those two kids have a chance. Reed Blankenship from Middle Tennessee State is also there as a safety, and Josh Blackwell from Duke is a corner. Oh, and also, not that he'll make the team, but he could be brought to training camp. Tuzar Skipper. He is a tryout player who's a stand-up outside linebacker, had big numbers in college. He's been with the Titans and Steelers. He was the last cut of the Steelers a couple years ago. Well, being that the Eagles like using a strong side linebacker, and then as you've said before, who knows? It might run some 34. I'm not saying he's going to make it, but it'd be interesting to see if he comes to training camp what he can do.
Right, and of course, there's also the Penn State basketball player John. I don't know if it's Harar or Har. Shame on me for being a Penn State guy and not knowing, but a Penn State basketball player who's getting some looks there at camp. I believe at tight end, right? So, which is part of that what they're doing, which is trying to leave no stone unturned, looking for great athletes and seeing if they can turn them into football players. So obviously they struck gold with Jordan Mailata in that regard, and we'll continue to look. They're going to do that for from now until whenever. That's a big thing what they try to do
with tight ends. Just real quick before we get out of here, they've tried it before. I don't have the names in front of me, but I was told by a team source years ago that Roseman gave their personnel staff kind of a directive: hey, we want guys like this, like Antonio, just someone either played football before, maybe like Gates played football in high school and then didn't play in college at Kent State, and then obviously he's going to make the Hall of Fame. But just somebody that's got the ability, that played hoops, who's long, like this kid from Penn State, as you were saying. Look, a couple teams have done it with these guys who played basketball before. So that's something that they're looking into. One of these times, maybe it'll work, but they're not the only team to try to do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, work with Mailata, just not basketball. It was
right.
Rugby.
No, but that's look, the rugby thing. Oh my God! I mean,
sure.
Also, he's 6'7". You know what? I wonder if Jordan at 6'8". I wonder if he played basketball. Who knows?
That's a good question. Something we can ask him down the road. All right, there's one more thing I want to get to before we get out of here. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you head out there to Westchester, PA to see our friends at Sky Motor Cars, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. You touched on it really quickly, Adam. I want to bring the discussion back to whether or not the signing of Noah Ellis, 350-pound guy, after the drafting of Jordan Davis, a 350-pound guy, means or signals some sort of shift to a more 3-4 defense. I've seen people ask us that. My personal feeling, just in seeing the looking at it from afar, and also based on the fact that Jonathan Gannon was asked that over the weekend and he didn't say no and he didn't say yes, is that we talked about this. They were an odd front defense for a lot last year. They were 5-1 or 5-2, 4 defensive linemen and a strong side linebacker on the line of scrimmage. That's your 5. And then when they rushed the passer, they went into their traditional 4-3. I think that if Luther Ellis can make the team and give them what they want.
No Ellis. Yeah, no Ellis.
I'm sorry, no Ellis. Yeah. If Luther Ellis makes the team, the Eagles have problems. Yeah. If Noah Ellis makes the team, what I think it allows Jonathan Gannon to do is to be able to use that sort of head up, nose tackle-ish guy he's been looking for with 2 different guys. So like, let's say Jordan Davis gets hurt, then you can play Noah Ellis in those special packages. But to me, I don't see them being a 3-4 pure team anymore because they still don't have all the personnel and the elements of that. Usually a 3-4 team, you've got 2 outside linebackers who are long and lengthy, both can rush. They only have 1 right now, the Eagles, and that's Hassan Reddick. And my gosh, if he were to get hurt, they really don't have a natural. I mean, we know that they drafted Kyron Johnson, and we know that who's the kid? Patrick Johnson. They tried that position out for him last year.
Yeah,
Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, he played Sam, and then Teron Jackson, 75, played DN, but
yeah, he's a hand in the dirt guy, Teron
right.
Jackson. So,
and both the Jackson and Johnson. So I keep saying it.
I know.
So I'm gonna say Johnson next, but both guys played sporadically, through the seasons. The roles seemed like they were big, and then they've kind of faded. But yeah, they would have to get bigger, longer players. Although I'm told Reddick with the Panthers, they did some 34. They under Phil Snow.
Well, that's because Brian Burns can play the other. He played the other outside linebacker. He's long, he's lengthy. He can drop, he can run. I don't know who would play it opposite Hassan Reddick. Like
Josh Sweat, I would think. Yeah, Josh Sweat, I would think.
But again, his experience is totally going forward. He's not even the athlete that Brian Burns is. He's a great pass rusher, but he's not a back and forth type guy.
Can you remember when we saw him playing I never felt he was comfortable. I know in training camp he was not comfortable standing up. And then he got more comfortable when he was standing up during the season. But I agree with you. He's just much better with his hand in the dirt.
Like from a 7 technique or a 9, he was a wide 9 with Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
But you could see him, lining up outside the tackle shoulder a little bit and getting speed off the edge. But
and kudos to Gannon. I know we were very critical of him last year, and rightfully so, because that's what the tape showed, and that's what other teams told us. But kudos to him to finally give in and play some 9. Yeah. Because you saw, and Cosell pointed it out on our pregame show, you saw Josh Sweat really play better when they went to a 9 technique. It's just you want them out wide, man. That is what that is under Jim Schwartz. They found something in him immediately. Like they really did. Unfortunately, he had the knee issue and he didn't really play early in his career, but once he got healthy, he really started to flourish on playing that 9 technique, and good for Gannon to do that. And I do, that's another thing. When they play a 43 front, are they going to do the wide 9 front? We'll see. That's another layer of the 80 questions we have on defense right now.
Right. That's what the 49ers kind of do. The 49ers will play some multiple front. They'll play some odd front. And then when
they play.
Yeah, when they get the third down, they just flex those Bosa and whoever out and go. Yeah.
They're Chris Kuceric. He is I thought he was coming here, and it was I forget who they brought in, but it was either because Kuceric was a Jim Schwartz protege, and then he went to the Niners instead. And without him, they're not nearly as good. They never would have made they would have not made that run in 19 to the Super Bowl without Kuceric. He's amazing. He's a great coach.
They brought in Matt Burke, by the way. That was who the Eagles wound up bringing in for the D-line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Okay, good call. But what I'm saying is Josh Sweat is so much better when you get him just getting up, right, and with his hand in the dirt, he's just much better at it.
Yeah, he's a good edge rusher. Yeah, I don't think he's a outside backer with drop back capabilities. That's not what I say. So that was my way of saying I don't think they're going pure 3-4 or even maybe a little bit like they did last year for certain looks, but I don't see that being a staple of what they do. All right, I think that's going to be it. We'll have more intel for the next Inside the Birds pod, maybe some more front office moves and anything else that happens between now and then. So that'll do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.